On today's show, we talk about communities and moving from one community to another, but still being a community. We talk about how much time the iPhone cameras been taking up during the iPhone presentations over the years and the changes there, and talk about some other things too, and talk to a couple old friends and wander off talking about Fujifilm for just a little bit on this iPhoneography podcast.
A little bit.
Hey, everybody. It's Monday, April 11th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. And got a bit of a special show tonight because we have a couple of special guests with us. But first, I'll introduce you to my co-host, Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg. How's it going tonight?
It's going really good. We have some familiar voices with us. And first of all, I'd like to introduce, well, you know what? It's like getting the band back together, and all we're missing is the bass player. Because we've got Marc Sadowski and Matt Hoffman with us, and the only one that's missing from the old Tiny Shutter crew is Joseph Ferreira. But he's traveling right now, so it's no wonder he couldn't join us. But he's here in spirit, I'm sure. So, how you guys doing, Marc? We'll start with you real quick.
I always consider myself the bass player of the podcasting group. So, do I have to hang up?
No. I just said I just said Joe was, because he's the one that he's got a bass guitar.
He took my bass guitar?
I guess.
Oh,
So
I'm gonna have some
you're on
words
drums
with him.
now, bud.
Damn it! I got Phil Collins.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay.
Good.
It has been it's been quite a while since I've done anything iPhone related, and good to be poking my head out in here.
Yeah, and how about you, Matt? How you been?
Good. No complaints. Keeping busy, doing cool stuff, traveling a little bit. It's all good.
Excellent. Dave, you got any runs coming up at all, or you just did one recently? I know.
Yeah. It was a couple of weeks ago. The Just a Short Run half, and in a little under 3 weeks, the Pittsburgh half coming up.
Oh, right.
So I'm really hoping to get some really good pictures off of that one.
Yeah, cool. I know I need to do something for exercise. I'm going to get on my bicycle and ride a lot more this year. And I say that every year, but damn it, this time I'm doing it. So, and I've got my Apple Watch.
The run. Don't feel bad. The running thing, that's a sham. All I see is Dave eating these medals, and
yeah,
that's just not good for you, man.
I gotta get my iron in. I don't want to be.
I was just gonna say he gets his iron and maybe even some magnesium.
And zinc. Well, okay, if it's for your health, I guess it's good enough. But man, there's just something about running that just I do not want to do it at all. Like I will make effort to avoid it at all costs. Man, I will do a workout like you wouldn't believe just so I can avoid an easy run. It's it's kind of like
I bought a car so I don't have to run.
There you go. It's kind of like a lazy kid doing more work just so they don't have to wash their hands, but eventually they have to wash their hands. I'm kind of like that with running. It's just like, nope. I will walk twice the distance or whatever it takes, but if I have to like trot, no. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
So Dave, I commend you and curse you at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought we'd start off tonight with a quick word on communities. So, I often talk on the show about the iPhoneography group or the Artful iPhoneography group on MeWe, and sad to say, but its days are coming to a close. very shortly, because quite frankly, it's not active. There's over 100 people in the group, but I bet you there's been maybe 2 or 3% of the people that are members have actually posted recently. And even at that, it's been very sparse. And I am guilty. I am very guilty because I haven't posted anything on there really myself. And I recently kind of put a poll out there on there to say, should we keep it going or shut it down? And everybody that answered the poll wanted to keep it going. But again, it was a very small number of people. So its days are coming to an end. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to, download any photos that they have on there if they want to, and just shut it down. So I'll probably give it till the end of April for people to do that, and then just pull the plug. So that being said, what I'm going to do, or what we're going to do, I guess, because all four of us are members of the Tiny Shutter Facebook group, is we're going to actually just change the name of that to the iPhoneography podcast group. And, it's flourishing. There's a number of active members on there every month. So I think it's worth keeping it going, and we'll just change the name to reflect this podcast. 'Cause basically this is what Tiny Shutter used to be. And, I'm having too much fun with it to shut the podcast down. And, I just want to have some kind of community somewhere where the members that, people that listen to the show can, talk about things, post pictures on a group, and the group's already established. So why not just change the name to reflect this podcast? And if Tiny Shutter ever fires up again, we can always change it back.
It's not going to happen, but it makes more sense to take an established feed that has been active and just give it a tiny little name change. I mean, really, the thing that's been keeping it going is that it's always had a vague title. What is it? iPhoneography, a Tiny Shutter group, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the official name. I mean,
it is.
We keep it, but get rid of the Tiny Shutter, and it just encourages more iPhonographers to join the group naturally, and it allows us to spread the word of the podcast and the community and so forth. So it's a win-win.
Oh yeah, for sure. So so that's that's going to be a good thing. The only other thing I wanted to mention about communities was, I'm a member of a bunch of things, and I spend time on this, and then I'll spend time on that and everything else. Currently, I've been looking at quite a bit on the iPhone photo team. So there's the iPhone Photo Show is a podcast that Scott Bourne and Jefferson Graham do, and it's been out for I think about 8 or 9 weeks or so, and it's a weekly program, but a half an hour long, and it's pretty good. It's entertaining, and they have guest interviews and things like that on there, and they've got an active community on the Mighty Networks where the AIPC started. But Scott Bourne, he's been a pro photographer for years. He's covered, auto racing, wildlife. He's an ornithologist before he's anything. He's a bird specialist, and he does a lot of bird stuff. He recently came back from Alaska where he was shooting bald eagles, and he captured some shots with his iPhone. And but he was testing out a Panasonic Lumix GH6, I think it's called. It's not even on the market yet, but Panasonic gave him this camera to try out and I guess give his thoughts on it maybe. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what that is. Is it out now? Because I know when he took it with him to, when he took it with him to Alaska, it wasn't out yet. So, but it could be out now, I guess. But
I'm a Fuji guy myself, but I've heard of it. I mean, it's a good video camera.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if he shot video with it or not, but anyway, yeah. So that's another community that's kind of growing, and just it only started maybe 6 weeks ago or so, and it's it's a good place to just like any other iPhone photography community. It's a good place to learn, teach, share, all that stuff. And just find like-minded people to communicate with and quote unquote be around, I guess. So that's another place to look at. There'll be a link in the show notes if you want to have a look at it. And so that's about all I have to say on communities. Next, we're going to talk about something that Marc brought to our attention. It's a video that Marc has Brownlee on his Waveform podcast. He does the podcast, but then he does a YouTube channel called Waveform Clips, where he puts little segments out that he does on his show. And he was talking about a tweet that he saw from a fellow named Josh Lee, who put a chart on there showing how much time, like this percentage of time spent on the cameras in each of the iPhone announcements. And, interestingly enough, it started out with like barely nothing to now being like a good third of the keynote, taking up the keynote, however long it's been. So, we just wanted to have a little discussion about this because this is a very interesting statistic, I guess you could say. And really, guys, I'm not even surprised because the cameras, and it's not just iPhones, it's other phone makers other phone makers are experiencing the same thing. And it's just no surprise that the camera is taking up a big chunk of these keynote presentations. So Marc, when you saw this, what did you first think?
I immediately wanted to, well, first of all, no surprise. They are just such a fundamental part of our user experience now. But more importantly, the big number I wanted to see was the iPhone 4 experience, because that was essentially when iPhone photography put itself on the map in my eyes. I was kind of shocked to see how little it was for the iPhone 4 keynote. But then again, it also makes sense because with the iPhone 4, you had a change in design. You had essentially a change in, I think that was the first time it was a Retina display. And so it was kind of like even all across the board. And then only after that did you see the iPhone camera take more center stage.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, though, is that the 3GS was an 18-minute presentation, and the time spent on the camera was 25% of that time. Whereas with the 4, it was a 52-minute presentation and less time on the camera, like 7.73% of the time was spent on the camera for the 4.
Was this the first time for the 3GS? Was it the first time that video was allowed on the iPhone?
I'm not sure. But
when was the first time video was on the iPhone?
I'm looking that up now.
Because I want to know. I want to say that yes, the 3GS had a lot of time.
It was the 3GS. There was no front camera. The front camera was the iPhone 4, but the 3GS was the first with video.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the big bump up for me with the camera was really the 4S versus the 4.
What was the 4? What was the big thing with the 4S for you?
I just remember it was a higher resolution because
it went to 8 megapixels from 5, right?
Yeah, because when we got our first iPhones, I had the 4S and Ruth had the 4, and there was a noticeable difference in quality between the two.
Yeah,
and there was a big, even though the camera, honestly, they looked the same.
Yep.
Because they had the same body, except that, now I'm looking it up now. Let's see here. The 4S can do 8 megapixels. Yeah, it went from 4 megapixels to 8 megapixels. And the 4S was able to do 1080p versus 720.
Oh. Okay.
So it was the first one to actually do true high def, not just 720.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just remember, like I said, and of course, the big difference was the 4S fixed the "you're holding it wrong" issue.
Antenna gate
with the antenna gate. But remember, the 4 was also the one that was stolen.
Yes,
right.
So they did talk about that and it was like since it was a radical new design for the time, going from the original to the 3G to the 3GS to all of a sudden you're going flat side instead of rounded, and you're getting glass front and back. So I could see Apple spending a lot more time on the design on the 4, where the 4S, they could say, well, see, that was also the first in the bane of Marc's existence. The 4S was the first Siri phone.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Remember Siri? I had such high hopes for Siri. I was so excited, and man, what
so excited yet so disappointed.
I mean, she was not excited for me. That's for sure. The rest is history.
But I mean,
and like when you look at the length of time for the whole event, okay, so real quick, the iPhone itself, the first one was a 79-minute thing. Then the 3G was 100 minutes. The 3GS, 18 lousy minutes. That was it. But yet the camera took up 25% of the time.
Yeah, I don't think there was a large difference between the 3G and the 3GS, was there?
Not really. I think there was the camera bump. I think the camera went from 2 megapixel to, what was it, 4 or 5?
Yeah, but
I think that was about the only thing, really. Yeah. And then over the years after that, it does kind of bounce back and forth. The amount of time spent on these on the camera throughout these different keynotes. But the first time it was a significant amount of time was with the 5S, when it took up almost 31% of the keynote.
Yeah, in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what do you think? Oh, go ahead, Mark, first.
No. I had nothing important. I was just curiosity as to what other brands were doing for timing.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. But Matt, what do you think of this whole thing, like of the camera taking up so much time, and and how it started out?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you guys, to me, it was like, well, yeah, no duh. But kind of for a variety of reasons. As the cameras have gained, better specs and more capability, coupled with, the processor's ability and the operating system and apps and everything, the camera is not just a photography tool, in the traditional sense that we think of it. It's a scanner, it reads QR codes and all that kind of stuff. So it keeps gaining, new capabilities and new uses. So, it kind of makes sense to me that, yeah, sorry about the cat.
No, I want to hear from him.
Yeah, she has a lot of input on this as well. What she's trying to say is that, there's probably really only so much that like Apple could say about like screen brightness or screen resolution or whatever other, crap that they might improve on these iPhones. The camera is like the one place where there's something substantial that they could talk about, a new sensor, lenses, bigger lenses, more lenses, all that kind of jazz. Whereas, I don't really care if they move the battery to a different spot in the phone or something like that. That's not very interesting to hear about, the camera. And I guess the camera is interesting because I'm interested in photography and iPhone photography and whatnot. But I think just people in general, just even if they don't consider themselves a photographer or an iPhone photographer, they use the camera a lot, and Marc was alluding to it earlier. It's very important to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, there's two things that people do with smartphones, let alone iPhones, but smartphones, and that's
the other
text messaging. Yeah, like there's text messaging or social media, that type of thing, and then there's taking pictures, and that's the two biggest reasons people have these things, in my opinion. There's like media consumption, I guess, could be put in with that. People watch YouTube videos, TikTok and all that stuff. I guess that's all part of social media, but there's that part of it. And then the other part of it is pictures. And it's no wonder that all the phone companies are like, there's a camera war going on. Because Shane Mostyn just put out a video this morning about shooting the galactic core of the Milky Way in the night sky with a bunch of rocks, like a rock formation in the foreground. And he took 3 different phones with him. And I'll put a link to this video in the show notes because it's really worth watching. And Apple's got some homework to do because the iPhone took the worst out of the 3. He took the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the Samsung 22 Ultra, S22 Ultra, and the Pixel 6. And you guys, if you haven't seen the video, can you guess which one did the best?
The one that allows more of a heat sink to go through.
The S22, I don't know. I haven't seen the video.
I'm guessing the Pixel because of the computation that Google just throws at everything, even though I know Samsung takes an amazing moon photo.
Yeah. Oh, and I should say, too, that there was a half moon when he did this, right? Okay, so there's a bit of light pollution going on, but that lit up the rocks in the foreground. Mm-hmm. And, okay, spoiler alert, the Pixel 6 blew the other 2 right away. It was unbelievable. Now, in my opinion, the Pixel 6 has, like when the Google Pixels do night photography, they do like a 4-minute exposure, 4.5-minute exposure. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But I mean, check out the video and you will be amazed at the detail that the Pixel gets in the rocks in the foreground. It's just mind-blowing. And Apple needs to be ashamed of themselves because it's just, there's just no competition. Now,
okay. That being said, I think our friend over at Halide, one of the last videos that I did for Tiny Shutter was talking about this very thing. Why is it that the iPhone's native camera app has such limitations? Like what is it about the computational photography that differs from other companies, and why is the iPhone so limited And it's not that the iPhone is completely unable to do this. It is just made, it basically has the walls put up. Like, you could probably do a longer exposure, but Apple's not allowing it. Their API calls puts a hard stop at, I think, God, I can't even remember what I think it's
well, the shutter only physically stays open for 1 second.
1 second, yeah. That's the longest
and
you can do.
It's to do with what you said. It's that heat sink. They don't want the chipset to heat up.
They don't want it to heat up, because the more heat that it experiences, the more entropy that you put into the system. Basically, you're killing the sensor a little bit faster each time, and
and you can end up with noise too.
And you end up with noise, and of course, computational photography could take care of that. But what you're doing is shortening the life of your camera, and they don't want a bad experience. And how many people are out there doing astrophotography on their smart devices anyway?
Exactly. It's the old 90-90 rule, right? Apple wants to please 90% of the people 90% of the time. And, I would go so far as to say at least the four of us anyway, and probably anybody that listens to this show is probably in that 10%. You probably have other apps on your phone.
Truth be told, I'm a bit borderline. It's while for me it's been a novelty that the iPhone could take such good photos at nighttime, but truth be told, I'm not much of a nighttime photographer. I haven't taken any additional star photos. Maybe it's kind of like the chicken and the egg thing. Like, if it was able to be better, maybe I would do more. But it's one of those things that has an interest to me. I'll say this: the thing that has really turned me off from any kind of nighttime photography with the iPhone is because any kind of light source that shines into your lens is going to create these little freaking blue nodules. And they are plentiful. Like, with every new model phone that comes out, like they seem to just multiply. And
well, because they have more lens elements and stuff, I guess.
More lens elements that are going over the lens elements. What you're seeing is it is bouncing off the protective lens or lenses that are protecting the actual lens of the camera. You could do this on your DSLR camera. Like, if you're shooting straight with just your camera and your lens, you're not really going to see this phenomenon. But if you put on any kind of lens filter over that lens, then those little nodules start popping up.
Right.
So on the one hand, Apple is in a bit of a bind because of physics, but at the same time, man, it just seems to be more egregious with the iPhones.
Yeah. But, I think that's why, these phone companies are putting so much time and effort. Like, what was it? Renee Ritchie, I think, said on Mac Break Weekly one time, there's well over 100 people working on the camera at any given time at Apple.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's probably the same with all these other companies too. They've probably got dozens and dozens of engineers and whatever working on the cameras. They've got physics to think about. They've got software, how it integrates with the hardware, all this jazz. And I mean, it's no wonder that the camera takes up so much, time in a keynote presentation.
Well, it's also the easiest thing to show too, because you think about a keynote, it's still pretty much it's a PowerPoint presentation, or it's a presentation. I want to say PowerPoint because We know Apple doesn't use PowerPoint, luckily, but it's a keynote presentation, but it's still visual. And to say, here's a graph that shows how quick our processor is, that's great.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a graph.
Yeah.
But you can say, hey, here's a shot taken at night, boom, that we took with the phone, or, what Apple tried to do last time, which was a success. Here's a video we took with our new amazing cinematic mode where it can flip back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you guys shouldn't have spent that much time on it.
They should have spent like 2 seconds on it, and that was
a little bit more than that, because there's the flicking back and forth still doesn't work well, but having your main thing in focus and the background blurred, that's a nice little touch for a video. Is it professional quality? No. Just like, is portrait mode professional quality? No. Is it really nice, though, compared to what the average person can do? Yes. And again, Apple's selling, if you look at the top 5 best-selling phones out there, Apple has 4 of them. So Apple's going, this is, if you're a longtime Apple user, this is a weird thing to say Apple is your mass market.
Yes. No, it's totally true. It is appealing to the creators, and it's appealing to the average person. Yeah.
Because, I looked at Shane's video, and he took, first of all, it helps that, now, admittedly, you're right. Looking at the photos, the iPhone is the worst of the photos. But he's also out in the middle of the outback, or I don't know if he's in the middle of the outback, but he's in Australia, where, it looks like he's far away from any artificial lighting, out in the middle of nowhere type thing. And then he shoots it in RAW, and he dumped it down and uses full-blown Adobe on the desktop, where I guarantee you, unless you're a professional, someone's paying you to do it, you're not dumping it into Photoshop on your desktop.
Yeah, well, he does do a lot of editing on his phone too.
Yeah,
like he'll sometimes he'll do it right there on the spot. He'll use Lightroom Mobile, but
and he'll be paying for the Lightroom Mobile, not using just the free part.
Oh yeah.
So and I'm willing to say that the average person, this is not going against the other cameras, because again, very few people are going to have the 3 cameras, which I know it's good to have them do this, but how many, if I want to take a photo of the stars, me going out for a 30-second exposure, that's not a big deal. And it comes out pretty good on its own, but I'm not going to generally take a 4-minute exposure. And I guarantee you the average person won't be taking a 4-minute exposure. But one thing that's nice about night mode is, if I want to take an indoor picture in a restaurant that's lit like most restaurants where it's hard to see, I can take that picture and it turns out pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I've done that a few times. Or if I want to take a picture of a cat or a dog, when we're only having a little bit of light, and of course, flash is useless, it turns out pretty good. If I have a way I can, steady the camera and the cat and dog's not moving per se, I can get a pretty good picture without any lights on. So that, is just a big help too. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't shock me that Apple's spending so much time with it, because also the last major change, there was a change with the iPhone 12 and 13 and, but the big last major change was 2017 with the iPhone 10. Yeah, there were size differences, but in terms of, if you show someone,
it was a complete design change. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. If you show someone an iPhone 10 and you show someone an iPhone like a 13 Pro Max, like this one, obviously size difference, and there's some design differences that we'll notice maybe, but the average person will go, oh yeah, they look like one just a newer version of the other. And that's we're going on 5 years now. And given the rumors coming out, there's not going to be a lot of change with the 14. Well, the main 14. The 14 Pro may switch to, instead of having a notch, have a punch hole and a strip in it. But
a pill.
The pill. But it's going to look very similar to this. It just won't be completely black. It'll just have bits bit up there. The 15 may be the next, the next big change, but that's 2023. So we're talking 6 years, and, battery life has stayed the same. The battery life between a 10 and a 13 are kind of similar. A new 10 and a new 13. The fact that this battery is so much bigger and this thing's heavy. This is just heavier than even the regular 13. I can feel the difference.
And you're talking the 13 Pro Max.
Pro Max, and the regular 13. I can feel the difference between our two phones, but this thing's got a massive, massive battery because it has a massive, massive screen to make up for it. So honestly, the easiest way to tell someone the difference between why I should get this phone here, other than my current phone's broken or my current phone is 4 years old, is to say, look at the pretty pictures.
I mean, lately it's been incremental updates.
Right.
You're seeing a lot more pro features enter the iPhone ecosystem, in that you're able to do on the pro cameras, what is that video format that's
I know what you're saying.
ProRes. Basically, if you want to eat up all your space, there you go.
And if you have the software to edit it properly.
It's but for the most part, I think a lot of, I'm going to say quote unquote pro users, are just spending too much time and effort on the pro features of the iPhone. I think for the most part, unless you're actually like filming a movie, ProRes isn't necessary. I think if you're doing any kind of photography with your iPhone, I think RAW is overrated. I think the JPEGs that the iPhone produces, trust in the computational photography. It doesn't disappoint very often, at least in my experience. I think you could, to your point, Dave, when you were saying, the iPhone does a pretty good job of doing the night photography just fine. I think RAW is just overrated. People tend to view RAW as like, the be all end all file format, and all it means is just more work on the other side.
Well, and it's only for serious photographers anyway, right? Like, again, the 90-90 rule. And, I would probably hazard to guess that 5%, maybe even less, of all iPhone users will actually shoot RAW.
And this
just because it's, because like you say, the JPEG, it comes out very nice. It comes out, it comes out bloody well printable even.
Yeah. And this might be just me, like the Fujifilm and me talking, because
I was thinking that.
I mean, Fuji photographers, we trust in the JPEG a lot more, and to that respect, it's makes post-production so much more easier.
I've heard you talk about this on your podcast, Fuji Love. Everybody, go listen to it. But and I've heard even your guests on there talk about how the JPEGs that come from the Fujifilm cameras, is very adequate. because you can put the film sims on them and everything.
The film simulation is enough. And you can even fine tune each of the film simulations to give it your own kind of flavor. And it's JPEG is just fine. I mean, this is this is from ranging from wedding photographers to photojournalists. They are they are JPEG only is although with some photojournalism they require the RAW just to show that there was no alteration.
For integrity,
right.
Yeah.
But to that point, it's like they don't want any kind of photo manipulation either. So it's a kind of shame that things have been the way they are. But anyway, the JPEG comes out pretty good, and I think it comes out pretty damn good on the iPhone too.
Yeah. Something else to note on this chart is that, and if you want to see this chart, Marc Brownlee shows it in his video, and again, we're going to link that in the show notes. But when it got to the iPhone 11. They spent a lot of time on the video camera in that phone, like in the 11 Pros especially. It went from the 10S at 22% of the keynote spent on the camera to on the 11, it went to 35, little over 35% of the keynote was on the camera. And that's when they showed Filmic Pro doing front and back cameras at the same time and all this stuff. Like there was a lot of things, and it was largely due to the fact that the chipset was changed so that it worked in a way that the only parts of the chip that would be activated was the parts that was needed to do the function. And that really helped boost the battery life in the 11 compared to the previous phones.
You know what? I know they were showing off the video feature, and I guess you could count it the same, but I feel that was more showing off the power of the chip because
man. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree 100%. And of course that's when they first introduced night mode too. So they had to spend some time on night mode. That's when they talked about deep fusion. It hadn't been released yet. It wasn't releasing till an update later in that year. But that's when they talked about
that.
Well, it's here, but it's sometimes it's a hindrance, I think, instead of a help. But
did it eventually get put out?
Oh yeah, it came out later, like they said. Like it came out, I think it was in January, the following January, in an iOS update. So it's been around.
Yeah.
So my phone has it right now.
Right.
Yes.
Where do I find that?
It's automatic. No, that's the thing. It's automatic. The idea is it's almost like a dusk mode. It's when the camera gets dark, but not quite dark enough for night mode, it'll just do the extra computational.
Huh.
And
but there is a hidden way to turn that off. And I just heard about this today, to be honest with you. So in the camera, when you go to the settings, so in the settings app, and then you go to camera. So it's, partway down the page there. You got music, TV, photos, then you go to camera. And then you go to, let's see, where is it? Okay, so view outside the frame. Now, if you turn that on, if you turn it's off on mine, I leave it off. But if you turn it on, and you then when you're looking at the viewfinder and you're composing your shot, and if you can see outside the frame, if you can see outside the frame, then deep fusion is deactivated. But if you get to a point where if you move your phone around to different lighting around you, and if that viewing outside the frame goes away, then Deep Fusion is back on again.
Deep Fusion might reach out to you and meet you in the parking garage.
Yeah. But I just heard that today it was on Mac Power Users on that podcast that I heard about it. And I haven't been able to test it very well, but I did do a quick test, and I did see a very, very, very slight difference in the two images I took. So I think there's something to that.
So you want to turn off view outside the frame and it'll turn it on?
Yeah, that turns on Deep Fusion all the time.
Okay.
If you turn that view outside the frame on, if you toggle it on so that you can see outside the frame when you're holding your phone up to take a picture, then in the right conditions, when that's on, Deep Fusion is supposed to be off.
Okay.
So you'd almost have to set your camera on a tripod so that absolutely nothing moves. Take a picture with that setting turned on to deactivate Deep Fusion, and then toggle it off and take the same picture again in the same lighting, everything the same. And then, you may see a very slight difference. Like Deep Fusion doesn't do a whole lot, but it does make a difference in the image, and it's mostly for, darker lighting situations.
I don't know. I still think it's a myth. Kind of like the Johnny Ives Leica camera.
Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, so, looking at the chart, it was the iPhone 11 had the most time ever in a keynote. It was 35%. And then the 12 and the 13 around 33.5% each, length of time. And, that being said, the 12 and 13 had different kinds of presentations. That's when they didn't go live. They just streamed like a movie or a variety show type of event. But still, the camera had pretty good length of time that they spend on them. So, Matt, any final thoughts on this whole thing before we move on to something else here?
No.
Oh, you're sidelining. That's a problem that moved from Canada to the States.
No, I don't really have anything else to add to this. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I really felt this was an interesting topic of discussion when Marc sent us this YouTube video that Marc has put out, and it like I say, it's happening in all the phone makers. I think the latest Xiaomi presentation was like a majority of it was on the camera. Like I'm talking a very, very large percentage of it. I wouldn't even hazard to guess how much, but I'm pretty sure it was mostly all camera related and like very little to do with the phone itself. So it's just interesting. It's a real camera war going on, and it's always fun to see what comes out next. Like maybe sometime in the future, Dave, we'll do a little prediction show where we can talk about what we're hearing, what's coming out in the next iPhone, and give our guesses and stuff. So so now we'll move on to just normally we do, Dave and I go through our recent photos and talk about some pictures and that, but we're not going to do that because we got a couple of guys on here we haven't talked to in a while, and we thought we'd just do a little catch up and see what you guys have been up to. Matt, what have you been up to lately? Like, have you been taking many pictures, or what have you been doing?
I was honestly hoping you wouldn't ask me that.
It doesn't matter if it's photography related or not, but it's just good to have you on.
My answer is just not appropriate for an iPhone photography show. It would be better.
Okay,
suited.
we'll take out the iPhone part, and then we'll just talk about photography.
It'd be better suited to Marc's podcast. Yeah,
I wanted to ask you though, what camera are you using?
Yeah, so I guess it's been like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago now. I bought Fuji X Pro 2 off of Marc.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit, well, no, I don't hate to admit it. I am completely in love with it. Completely. I am very smitten with this camera.
Hey, the geek in me wants to know a little bit about this camera. What's the sensor size?
It is
adequate.
20, yeah. So
is it like 24?
Yeah. So, it's a crop sensor, APS-C, 24 megapixel.
Okay.
And I think the thing for me that there's a whole variety of things that I really love about it over my old Sony, right? Like just from the physical camera body, it's bigger and I feel like it just fits my hands better. One of the things that I loved about my Sony was that it had, physical dials for kind of controlling each of the settings, shutter speed and aperture, if the lens didn't, most of the lenses for Sony don't have an aperture ring. So you could control all the exposure triangle without having to go into like menus or rely on priority modes or any of that kind of stuff. And
old school.
Yeah. And the Fuji, while you can do priority modes and even kind of a mostly full auto type mode, it's really geared towards somebody that wants to be in control and wants to fiddle with knobs and dials to adjust, aperture and shutter speed and ISO. And I really like that. It forces you to slow down and kind of, pay attention to what the hell you're doing when you're shooting. So I do love that. And, Marc talked about it earlier about the JPEGs, right? So, if anyone's listened to me over all these years, in the podcast, even when the iPhone got RAW, like I'm a huge proponent of RAW for, a variety of reasons. I just like, all the control that you'd get, over the editing and, being able to get details out of the shadows and highlights and all that stuff, right? The frickin' JPEGs out of the Fuji cameras are just amazing. They are just...
I think I just saw Marc's picture because he's not on video, but I think I just saw his smile get bigger.
You're not wrong.
They're absolutely gorgeous. They really, truly are stupendous. Like, so the way I shoot now has changed. Because I've been a RAW shooter for so long, I can't just like give that up cold turkey. So I shoot RAW plus JPEG. And that's the other nice thing with this camera that my Sony didn't have. I have 2 card slots, so I could, really? RAW, go to one card and JPEG on the other card, which is really nice. And,
how old is this camera?
It came out in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's certainly not new, but I mean, at the moment, it seems like a camera that I could have for another kind of long time here.
Well, it's a testament to the longevity of the brand, right? I mean, it's like a Mac computer. You can use that thing for 10 years before you'd have to replace it or even think about replacing it. So, to be able to use a camera that's that good for that long, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the JPEG files are just absolutely amazing. Really, honestly, if anyone follows me on Instagram or whatever, a lot of the pictures that I've been sharing over the last handful of months have been from the Fuji, probably way more so than from the iPhone. And probably the vast majority of those pictures have been JPEGs and not.
Are they on your site?
That's a very selective group of pictures. I don't put them all on there. Just
Okay.
if you go to Instagram, obviously, and I've been a little bit more active on Flickr lately. So if you haven't been to my
Okay.
Flickr site, there's a ton of new
Yeah,
stuff.
we'll have
on
links
there.
to those in the show notes.
But one last thing that is something I really, really like, and it was important to me before deciding to buy this camera from Marc, was lenses. So like Sony, if you want to buy Sony lenses, they have a very flushed out line of lenses. They've had their mirrorless cameras around for, quite a number of years now. But then every third party manufacturer has like any lens you could possibly want for the Sony E mount, not to mention all the adapters you could buy to adapt pretty much any lens that you want to adapt. So like, for my Sony, I had adapters for, Nikon F mount and Pentax and Minolta and 2 or 3 other like kind of weird mounts I just happened to have some lenses from. And I just thought that was really cool. Like, I have unlimited options for lenses, and I wasn't necessarily excited to give that up. But it turns out Fuji, not really on par with Sony, but damn close. Tons and tons of lenses available. There's a lot of third-party manufacturers making, X-mount lenses, and there's quite a variety of adapters if you want to adapt, other lenses. And that's actually the first thing I did when I got my hands on this camera. Basically, I just decided to wipe myself clean of all the Sony stuff. So most of it I sold, and I basically hung on to 2 like kind of vintage Nikon lenses. And so I managed to get my hands on a Nikon to X mount adapter. And for the first, I don't know, month or so, I just shot with these 2 Nikon primes or whatever until I finally got a zoom lens.
What are the focal length
Of which?
of the Nikons?
A 50 and a 135.
That's a good rate. Like 50 is I'm guessing it's probably at least a 1.4 aperture. Because they're usually the 50s are pretty clear lenses.
It's actually only an f2. What a piece
really?
of crap.
Okay.
Yeah. But the 135 is a 2.8, so
that's not bad. That'll get you some reach and some fast shutter speeds.
Well, I ended up getting an 18 to 300 millimeter zoom from Tamron. It's
nice.
It's brand new. Like it just came out, a handful of months ago, and it's their only X mount lens at the moment.
Oh, really?
And it's pretty freaking awesome.
Nice and clear.
Lens.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm very pleased with it.
What's the crop factor in the Fujifilm?
1.5.
Oh, okay. So that 300 will give you 450 basically equivalent.
Yeah, and
with the camera.
I'll have to go through my pictures that I've shot, and like filter them by focal length. But I bet you damn near 50% of what I've shot so far with that lens has been at the 300 millimeter end.
Yeah, well, it's there. You might as well use it, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. What about you, Marc? What have you been doing lately?
I surprisingly have been testing fairly recently zoom lenses for the Fuji, and because I've been testing the zoom lenses, and it's been winter for the most part, the people have not really been a good subject, and neither has any kind of plant life since we're I was testing it during the cold season, but bird photography has become something that I've kind of got the taste for. around that same time, my wife was putting out the bird feeders and everything, and so I would test out the lenses that way, and then with the little birds coming in, the hawks started to show up. I got a few decent shots of them, but with that, I was like, I want more. and so there's some local bald eagles that are nesting in the area, and so I would go out. There's a particular area on the coast that during low tide, they'll start hunting the critters that are trapped in tide pools and everything. This is along one of the river routes, not necessarily in the ocean itself, but yeah, I would go out and see if I could capture some eagle photos, and I think I got one eagle photo. Matt has confirmed that it's a juvenile eagle that I photographed, and I'm kind of happy with that. But for the most part, oh my God, all my photography sucks. It's all these nature photos are just god awful. But
admittedly, I haven't really been shooting a whole lot lately because I'm just not inspired by anything. It's this time of year is just so blah until we get some foliage.
But just the act of going out of your comfort zone and trying something new, it has been really, really fun. And it makes me realize that whatever zoom lens you have, damn, it's not enough. You always want more.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that is so true. Like, the most reach I had with the Sony camera, I had an 18-200. And at the time, I remember when I got that lens, it's like, holy crap, 200 millimeters. I think it was just having that zoom range in one lens was insane, right?
Yeah.
Now I have 18-300 millimeters, and I'm like, wow, 300 millimeters, I can go shoot some wildlife. Well, yes and no. I could shoot squirrels, because they're not super far away. But birds are still really tricky. I've managed to get the job done a little bit here and there, but yeah, if I could get my hands on something else, a 150-400 or 150-600 or something like that, then I'd be in heaven, and then I would lose my job because I'd always be out trying to take pictures of wildlife.
Oh my God, ain't that the truth? I was trying out the 70-300 zoom lens for the Fuji. It's a great lens, by the way. Very affordable too. So I'm looking at that at some point, and it was just not enough. I figure maybe 1.4, what was it, 2 times 4 times teleconverter attachment might be in order, but I don't know. God, there's so many choices. But my God, it's just been crazy amount of fun. It is, and the funny thing is, like, I would go out, like, just in this group of this area where it's just nothing but bird photographers and bird watchers. So you're either dealing with people with these massive lenses on these massive cameras, like they're shooting with the the 1DS bodies and the just these bazookas, basically Megatron's arm that they're using for the lens. And here I'm showing up with my XE4, which is is the size of a Pez candy compared to their cameras. And I'm showing up with my Fuji lens, and it's smaller. But
Oh yeah,
I was still able.
You know what they say? It's not what you got; it's what you do with it.
Oh, totally. But it was just fun, just kind of match up against them. They still had more reach.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun.
So I want to ask you
something.
Cool people. I want to ask you something, Mark. What is the better camera, the XT4 or the XS10?
What do you want to do?
Well, as much as I'd love to buy one, it's just not in the cards right now. But if I was able to, those are two that I've been kind of researching. XT4 and XS10. Okay.
To geek out a little bit here, the XS10 is if you want the experience that both Matt and I are talking about with the knobs and the aperture rings and everything. XS10 is not your camera. That is very much kind of like the menu system. It's a very stripped down version.
Oh yeah.
But it is insanely awesome for video. It is very intuitive for video. If you want to have that very manual experience, the XT4 would be the way to go. But
or even the XT3, I would imagine, would be good.
The XT3, if you're looking to do only stills, save yourself some money, because right now the XT4, you're paying for the IBIS, you're paying for the tilt.
But doesn't the XS10 have IBIS?
It does.
Yeah.
XT3,
but it's a lot less.
It's a lot less, but it's a lot less of a camera too.
Yeah.
You basically have a slower shutter. You have I would say the XT3 would be the way to go for you, because right now, brand new, you could get that thing really, really cheap. I think they're selling just the camera body. It doesn't come with a battery charger. That you could get it for under $1,000, brand new.
Oh yeah.
And the batteries and battery charges are you could get for the third party brands for a song. I would say that would be the way to go. Or get yourself look at the used X Pro 2s, X Pro, like Matt has, or even like look at the XT. What is it? XT30, I think it's out right now.
There's an XT3 too as well, I believe.
I think there's
a version 2.
It's a version 2. I think it's a XT30 version 2. Although,
maybe it's a 30. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but
it is. It is. It's a 30. It's version 2.
Yeah, I would say the XT3 is the you're looking at well-rounded, good video, no IBIS, but I mean, really, do you use IBIS all that much on your stills photography?
Well, it's in the iPhone, so
yeah, don't answer it. No,
but I mean, I don't have a traditional camera. I haven't had one in almost 6 years.
Yeah. I think that'd be the camera to start with. Although, I mean, if you have the money for it, the XT4 is a good camera to get, and that would like future-proof you for a while.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I want to buy one is so I can be on your podcast.
Oh, there you go.
He was just about spit out his ice cream.
No, you're more than welcome.
You know, I'm like oh gosh, you know, I want to get a new phone this fall, right? Because I go every 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that alone will be about what it would take to get, you know, the camera that I'd like to get. So that's probably why it's probably, you know, it's not in the cards right now.
And also, Mark, remember when you're talking under sub 1,000, that's US money.
Oh yeah.
It's not Canadian.
Oh, you know what? Good point.
Yeah. So that's like 1,800 Canadian. No, I don't know. It's
well, I do see
know,
B&H. Yeah, I do see the body for the T3. B&H body only is $999 US, but I don't know if Greg tries to buy it, if he can get it, you know, just with the conversion, or there's some other things added on, or who knows what.
Well, there's camera shops in town here that have them.
Right.
Right. And they price match.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right. So,
but like I say, it's not in the card. So I'm just curious to what your thoughts would be on, you know, the ones that I was interested in.
If you were to get a used XT2, you could probably get that pretty cheap, and it's still a really good quality camera. You're looking at, it's still the same kind of sensor as what Matt has with in his X Pro 2. They're essentially the same camera, just different body. If you could find a good deal on that, then that would put you into the system, and you won't be disappointed.
So shutter count's not really a big deal?
I mean, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
In fact,
anyway,
I happen to have a XT2 here with a cracked monitor.
Oh, is that right?
I keep telling Matt that I would fix up the monitor, the LCD screen on it, but I just haven't gotten a chance to do it. I'm afraid to do it, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Matt, do you think this will be? Should I give him a deal that he can't refuse and see if that'll convert him?
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe in a year or two we'll all converge together again like this, and then we'll be making an announcement that the iPhoneography podcast Facebook group, the name is changing again.
You know what?
Yeah,
Let's talk.
well.
Let's talk offline.
Let's say then all of a sudden I'm out of a podcast.
Oh no! We'll get you.
No, don't worry, Dave. This one ain't going anywhere because I'll still be shooting with a phone too. No, it's just it's wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking, and you know, it's I just can't see it happening anytime soon. But I just wanted to pick your brain for a minute and see what you thought of those.
I'll get you.
Scratching that itch.
Just remember, you started it.
Yes, I did. I did.
Now it's a challenge.
You're going to want to finish it.
Oh, we're not done. You may think the conversation's done.
Well, I think we'll call it a night for this part of the evening's entertainment. You know, it's been great having you guys on, and you know, look forward to any time. You know, like I've always said, the door's always open. If you guys are sitting there bored, nothing to do, and it's a Monday night when we're recording our show, then you're always welcome to come on. And,
right on.
You know, and I don't mind veering away from iPhone photography, you know, once in a while, just to talk about photography in general, because, you know, to be honest, sometimes that's what this show covers, is stuff that's related to both mobile and traditional photography. So nothing wrong with that at all. But,
nothing wrong at all. But if you want to
haven't you guys
got to
on,
go Fuji.
No, but I'm really loving your podcast. I'm a little behind on some of them, but I'm trying to think of who was the last one I listened to. But I mean, it's always entertaining. The last one was the what's his name? Something Rob, I want to say.
Oh Jesus! I have the podcast curse where I immediately forget who I spoke with as I'm finishing the phone call with them.
Yeah, no, but it was a good episode.
Right on.
Kurth Bob.
He was amazing.
Yes, that was a good show.
The funny part about that was I had no idea how he would. Like, I was not expecting him to start so dramatic with saying how life is good, life is shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when he mentioned, being middle-aged, I'm like, he's like, but I'm not really middle-aged. I'm like, I'll get you. I'll circle back around to this one. We had an amazing conversation. It was like a 55-minute long con to go right back to to circle back. I'm like, welcome to middle age, man.
Yep. Yeah, that was well played. It's a great podcast. Yeah. And they're all great photographers that you have on. Matt, you've been on there before, and it's a great podcast. So is there a website for the podcast or just the podcast itself?
There's the podcast, but if anybody is interested in subscribing to Fuji Love magazine, this is the owner of the podcast. Fuji Love magazine is. I mean, it is geared towards Fujifilm cameras and lenses, but
photographers,
photographers as well as the film photography, because they still make film. It is Fujifilm centric, but it is, if you enjoy photography, then subscribe to Fuji Love, and it's like $10 a month. Less than $10 a month. But there's also a free version that you can look at if you go to fujilove.com. Great articles, great photos. Check it out. And the podcast is also free on your favorite podcatcher, Spotify, iTunes, the whole shebang. Fujilove.com, Fujilove podcast, fujilove.com.
Cool. I'll make sure there's links in the show notes.
And I might be bringing back I might not be calling it the same name podcast, but I might be bringing back another show sometime soon. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger.
Okay. All right. I was thinking earlier, should I ask you about that or should I just leave it? So I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that, and we'll just let everybody wonder. So where can people find you?
You could find me at Marc Sadowski on Instagram, on Twitter, and that's probably the best places to find me.
Right on. How about you, Matt? Where can people find you and see your stuff?
Boy, too many places. Well, you could always see what I'm doing on Instagram for sure. So just check me out on M Hoffman Photo on Instagram, and I think the same name will get you to my Flickr as well. And if you are even tangentially interested in a print or know someone who might be, you could check out mhoffmanphoto.pickfair.com. And that'll take you to my website where you can buy fine framed prints and canvases.
And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram as ProfPod, on Twitch as ProfPodPGH. For the photography, pretty much Instagram, Twitter, a little photography and yelling, and TikTok, just general goofiness.
And you can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, on Twitter, Macmillan_photo, and all my links and stuff will be at about.me/Macmillan. And we record, when I can talk right, every 2 weeks. And the podcast lives on iPhoneography.ca, and watch for the newly changed Facebook group. Currently, iPhoneography, a tiny shutter group, soon to be named, I guess, the iPhoneography podcast group. So, come over there and see what the bees knees is all about, and like, share all that stuff, your photos. I've always said, learn what you don't and teach what you do know. So I think that's a great place to start, and it's been an ongoing community for quite some time. So thanks, guys. Really glad to have you on again. It's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to have you on again. And I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Have a great week.
See you soon. Yay.
Go ahead, Matt.
Bye-bye.
If you didn't say it, I've still got that little file I put in at the end of the show.
Let's say, Matt, first time you said it, though, Matt, you were muted, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I know. I said it, and I was like, oh, crap, I'm muted.
That's all right. We waited.
And talk to a couple old friends and wander off talking about Fujifilm for just a little bit on this iPhoneography podcast.
A little bit.
Alrighty, that's a take. I'm going to keep that part on there too.
Yeah, you got to keep. Yeah,
that definitely stays.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to hit the stop button here.
Bye-bye.